Welcome to NAMIWalks Kansas rally, and we are going to be doing the rally, the Q&A with Ernie and Joe Crisis Cop. So start putting your feedback in the chat, and I got a moderator that's going to start sending me some of your questions and feedback. Ernie and Joe will be ready here in just a few moments. So right now, I want to start off by thanking our sponsors. We want to thank them very much for being 2021 NAMIWalks Kansas sponsors. We also have some folks in person here. Some are hiding from the camera, and that's all right. Everybody's here has got a raffle ticket, right? Grace, will you hand me one raffle ticket? So what we're going to do with this one, hopefully Sherry's on, is going to help me out with this. But I want somebody that's watching the live feed to guess the last three digits on this raffle ticket. And we're giving away a NAMI stigma-free hoodie, and we've also got a couple walk shirts too, the mental health for all walk shirts. And so the walk this year, we're having to go virtual, right? So it all started last year, and so we want to raise awareness through social media, and everything has been tailored to be able to raise mental health awareness on May 22nd by using the hashtag not alone, and also hashtag NAMIWalks Kansas. So what you want to do, and I have the participant guidebook. All this stuff is available when you go to www.namiwalks.org/Kansas and get registered. And if you register as a team captain before March 12th, that's just, less than a week away, then you're going to be getting a free pop socket directly from NAMI National. So this is our first time doing like a hybrid, like we have in-person guests, and then also we have over 100 have responded to the event. So hopefully you guys will come on and start giving your feedback. Okay, so the first thing you would need to do is to go get registered. And if you haven't already, again, go to www.namiwalks.org/Kansas and go ahead and get registered. You can use your login from last year, or if you're new, definitely go ahead and get started. Next thing is to make a donation. Do a self donation, because that is setting an example to the others in the community and people in your circles that see you making a contribution. I mean, this is it really is a way to kickstart your fundraising when people see that you've made a donation. And also invite others. So how we could do that is your dashboard when you log into namiwalks.org is all customizable, and you can share your special link with Facebook, with Instagram, with Twitter, all social media. You could also email it out to everybody, and so you want to get the word out. Another thing that is really important is to customize your page. So you want to customize your page with pictures, why you want to support NAMI, what it means to you, this walk and raising awareness. A lot of people, you can go and take a look at the other teams and other people that have come on and registered. Take a look at their examples. And then also too is you can use emails work. Letters work. You can send text. You can send the links through text. Whatever works for you. And then you definitely want to get connected. So on your dashboard, it's gonna ask you to connect to social media. So like as soon as you log in, you select connect social media. You'll want to be already logged into your Facebook at the same time as you do this from your computer or phone, whatever you are using, and then connect Facebook right there. And then the next thing you'll need to do is not from Facebook, but from the namiwalks.org website. You want to get on there and start your Facebook fundraiser. And this is very specific to to your walk. And when people make donations, when you set it up this way, when people make donations, you're gonna see instant results. It's gonna update in real time. It's pretty awesome. And what I've noticed is that people, well, this is noticed through across the country, people that have used Facebook fundraisers through NAMIWalks.org, is they're fundraising on average about $150 more than what they had in years past. So it's an excellent way to connect. The reach isn't just in your community. It's to, all friends and family that could be even in other states. And so we want to be able to, we're trying to break down the walls of stigma. So we also want to take down these, the walls of the restrictions on being able to connect with people. And so the reach really is endless. And this participant guidebook, when you go to NAMIWalks.org and you log in, it's going to say participant guidebook right to the right of the home. Home will be highlighted, and then you click on participant guidebook, and then you can download this. You could also take the link and you can share the link with other people. And you want to register all the people that are participating with you and they're fundraising for you. You could do different events, such as, for example, we have Skidmark BMX. They are dedicating their NAMI Walk Day event is actually going to be a BMX race. It's going to be in Topeka, I think around May 19th. They're dedicating that race to raising mental health awareness and raising funds for NAMI and the affiliates in Kansas. So they're going to do, since it's local for me, I'm going to show up over there for their race, kind of get on the mic and tell everybody what NAMI Kansas does. And thank everybody for their support. And they're going to be doing a 50-50 raffle during their halftime gig. So really excited about that. So that's just one way. Or you can get your group together, go to the local park, and do that way. There's some other videos and stuff that show examples. People can, set up yard signs. You can get your neighbors in your community to go outside and walk. I mean, it's the idea is you can do anything. You can do arts and crafts. You can do cooking. You can host a Zoom dinner, and get all that together to be creative. And we also have hope signs. And so these hope signs are what you can use. You can customize your hope sign and take selfies and then post them on your social media. And then if you use the hashtags, hashtag not alone and hashtag NAMIWalks Kansas, I will be able to see them on walk day and then share them out for you and then really help you guys all who are participating to get that little bit of extra push. Also, I want to thank too our host, NAMI Hayes. So me and my helper friend came to NAMI Hayes today to participate in doing this event. And I'm like, I don't know, totally struggling. I don't know, adult ADD, whatever. That's why I walk. I want to introduce Anne. She is on the board of directors for NAMI Hayes, and she has a few words for you guys.
Good evening. I think it's evening, everyone, and welcome. We're glad to have you joining us on the NAMI Hayes co-host with NAMI Kansas, and we're very excited about first of all the wonderful video and discussion and having this event where we talk with Ernie and Joe. I think that's going to be just wonderful as well, and I am very pleased to have all of you. We have something like close to 125 people who are registered to do this online. So I want to welcome you and just let you know that I'm here as the chair of the NAMI Hayes Steering Committee and the Resource Center Coordinator for NAMI Hayes, and glad to give you all kinds of information or answer questions. And we also have in Western Kansas, we have two of our NAMI Kansas advocates, Art Summers and Rachel Gardner, who are out there and very glad to talk to you about how to get engaged with NAMI Hayes and NAMI Kansas and NAMI all the way to the top. So we are just very glad to have everyone here tonight. And I want to say just a big thank you to all of you and hope you enjoy it. And I want to say thank you to Stacy Leiden, who is and her helper Grace, who are here tonight to host this with us. And we're just very pleased. And they came out from NAMI, Kansas in Topeka, and a beautiful day. And we're glad to have those that are joining us in person also here. So I'm going to continue and go on and just turn it back to Stacy and say, glad to have you all here. Hope you really enjoyed this evening.
Well, we have Ernie and Joe in the waiting room. Okay, I'm going to bring them in and we are going to welcome them. Hey.
Hello, hello.
Thank you so much for coming on. My name is Stacy Liddon, and I have a group here behind me from different parts of Kansas. And NAMI Hayes is also helping us host here in person. And I have a helper, and then there's a few other law enforcement staff that are from around Kansas, Salina. Mm-hmm. And so thank you so much for being on here. Your film was absolutely amazing. It was very moving, and we're already so this is like a hybrid event. So we have some in person, and then we've sent the link out to the other people who registered. Thank you so much for being on, and so what makes you guys continue to do this? I mean, because you guys work so hard and so much. How do you well, I want to know everything, but it's like, I guess you can answer however you want.
All right, I'll start because why not? For me, honestly, I'm going to give the credit back to NAMI. NAMI was a reason, that mental health became a passion for me. It was a speaker. It was a guest speaker from NAMI that we talked about in the documentary that came and spoke to the class. It was joining NAMI and really understanding the needs of the families and the communities and what their expectations were from the police department, which we were not fulfilling at the time. I became a board of director for NAMI in San Antonio here for about 2.5 years, and just the connection, I guess, that we had with NAMI and then being a part of it for so long. That's really what kept me going, was that knowing that the communities that we were serving needed the support, needed the connection, and NAMI was kind of the conduit that did that for us. So, it's always been my close relationship with working with NAMI here in San Antonio.
And Joe?
Yeah, I would just say, Stacy, that neither one of us are doing it anymore because he retired in January and I resigned last September. So neither one of us are with the department anymore. But what kept me, I had no doubt that the mental health unit of the police department is the only reason that I even lasted as long as I did. And so to finish my last 11 years as an officer and be on the mental health unit, again, to me, it was one of the greatest revelations in my life, because it really provided a lot of mirror moments. It provided a lot of opportunity for me to see myself in a lot of the people that I was helping. And I just became super connected to the people. And so I couldn't imagine just doing police work and not getting to do that aspect of it. And so obviously, now we're both doing our own things and we're still providing trainings and things like that. But the mission goes on, Stacy, because it is super important. And we were very fortunate that San Antonio bought in the way they did, that the, chief kind of allowed everything to happen. But because it's a big police department, because there's a lot of overhead, not a lot of oversight. And so the mission seemed to change every 18 months. based on whoever our new chain of command was. And that part was difficult for sure, but there's a lot of lessons learned in there too. And so while San Antonio has an incredible model, and there's a lot of agencies and communities around the country that are trying to replicate things that are happening in San Antonio, there's also things that we've learned of, like, as far as like sustainability and succession planning, things that, you know, sadly, the unit looks very different than it did in the film. And so, yeah, I'm fortunate that we get to help people start from scratch that have nothing and no direction and no, like, there's a lot of uncertainty, and kind of help them, but also prepare them for, this is what you need for like a 3-year and a 5-year and a 10-year plan. So this isn't just a feel good in the moment type thing.
I have a question. What would you tell a young person who is maybe considering, being in law enforcement when they say graduate high school?
Go ahead, Joe. I can't. I know what he's going to say, so go ahead and say it.
Yeah, I would say that's great, but don't do it. And not just don't do it, period, but don't do it yet. I think this is one of those things that we have to, I know there's a lot of debate on both sides of this, but if we can accept the fact that science supports and suggests that our brain doesn't develop until we're 26 and our prefrontal cortex, our decision making, we should not be probably giving 21-year-old men and women the amount of power and authority that they have. I think it's fascinating. I cannot find any research on this, and so luckily my business partner Jesse's halfway done with his PhD now. But I'm so curious about if we were to look at like a very specific data set within policing of like use of force percentages or officer involved shootings, how many of those are within the first 5 years of their employment, and or how many of them are happening with officers that are 21 to 26 years old. I just think it's fascinating. I think we need to really raise the bar and have higher, more strict vetting practices. I think you should have to have a 4-year college degree. I think you should have to be 26 years old, or if not 26 years old, you have to have a 4-year college degree, and then you should have to have at least 1 year of experience working in some social services capacity where you can learn to have empathy and communication skills and work with the less fortunate individuals in the community before you get a gun belt, before you're taught on the use of force continuum. And I think if that happens, then absolutely. But to just take, like you said, Stace, people right out of high school that, I know you have to be 20, 21, but even if they just go get a couple years of college, or they go get a job and then they join the academy, there's just, in my opinion, they lack the life experience needed to deal with some of the very complex social issues that they're dealing with. And because our training is so all over the place, no two things are alike in any two police agencies, even our San Antonio to Bexar County, where the city falls within Bexar County. I mean, our academy is almost 8 months long. I think the Bexar County Sheriff's Office is maybe 3 months. It's just a totally different standard. It's a totally different requirement. We're not learning the same things, nothing's standardized. And so I think because of that, it's a crapshoot of who's showing up with what skill set, with what background, with what information, with what knowledge. And I think this is it's so clear to me why the problems are the problems that we have, and why there's a lot of strife and discord and disconnection. And I think that we have to look at how we can do it more intelligently. So that's what I would tell that youngster is good for you. Do it. We need men and women in this profession, but maybe pause, go get a little life experience. Go work with some social services or human services, get your college degree, really find out if this is what you want to do, not just because what a lot of cops do is they end up in this profession because it's just, I need a job, I need stability. Ernie tells his story about how he knew from when he was a young boy in the 5th grade and it was everything he ever wanted. that was not the case for me. I got out of the Marine Corps after 2 combat tours. I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. And I was like stuck, no college degree, 22, really no skill set. And so I was like, oh, I guess I'll just join the police department. That's probably not the most intelligent way to do it. And so again, I think, I'm glad that I was able to do it. I'm grateful for my time, but I just think, and then I don't want to go on forever on this, but the last point I'll make on it is the reason why, yes, I'm grateful I got to do what I did and I got to go in with no college and all this stuff. But if we had stronger vetting practices, I might not have ever been able to join the Marine Corps or the police department, because what I learned through my therapy at the VA was that because of my childhood trauma, as soon as I was exposed to combat, I was at a 300 times greater risk of developing PTSD, which I have a diagnosis of, PTSD and persistent depressive disorder. And then to go into a police department where it's just going to be exacerbated. And my therapist, after being a cop for about 7 years, is like, yeah, this is the worst profession you could have chosen. Like all you're going to do is consistently like re-traumatize yourself. And I was like, yeah, but I got to like make it 13 more years before I can retire. But luckily, that's when my therapy journey started, and I continuously go. But I think that, we really could prevent a lot of the mental health problems that we're facing in first responders, if we just did a little bit better job of hiring healthy people, maybe developing their resiliency on the front end a little bit better. But anyway, I got 72,000 ideas and we don't have enough time, Stacey. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And even though you have chosen to go in a different direction and focus a lot on self-care and taking care of yourself, just from what I saw in the film and other feedback that I've gotten so far of the people that have watched it, I mean, you made a huge contribution and helped a lot of people while you were as a police officer.
Yeah.
We're also streaming this on Facebook Live, and so I've got questions and feedback that are kind of piling in.
Let's do it.
All right. So Katie is saying, the more I watched the documentary, the more inspired I was to get involved. And these are, we're streaming from so this is also part of our walk rally. And so I was just talking about the walk before you guys came on. And so it was really exciting to watch you guys participating in the walk and talking about NAMI CIT. Patsy said, thank you, Ernie and Joe. I am so glad for your groundbreaking work. Katie says, is there any helpful hints or words you can give us to help communities realize that a CIT program would be helpful?
Well, it's a no-brainer. First of all, of course, it's going to be helpful because the basis of CIT training is de-escalation and how to recognize a mental health crisis. And like Joe said, the ideal applicant would be a little bit older with a college degree. Is that going to happen anytime soon? Probably not. So what needs to happen, right, would be a change in the antiquated type training that the police academies are putting out. And that's why in the film, when you saw NAMI come to the police academy and talk to the cadets, I mean, that kind of training is invaluable. And that's something that we didn't even start there in San Antonio until we started training the cadets in like 2012. And, it was amazing to watch the interaction between the cadets and the representatives from NAMI, because a lot of them, again, they're young. Probably 3 months prior to that, they were working at Starbucks or something. They just didn't have the life experience. And this was a great opportunity for them to start conversation, right, and learn about NAMI. We always made it a point when NAMI had their walk, and yours is in 76 days, so y'all need to rally this up, that we had the police cadets come to the NAMI walk. We had them participate. They weren't allowed to walk; they had to run because they were police cadets. So, it was a show of consolidation between the community, the NAMI family, and the police department. So very early on, we got them engaged with NAMI and let them learn about what NAMI offers. And, I think so. Back to the question, what can you do and why is it important? Is get involved with your local police department and do it early on. Volunteer to come in and speak to the cadets while they're going through the police academy, volunteer to be a part of the CIT training. And if your community does not offer CIT training, and because it's so different, like Joe was talking about, everything's so decentralized, find that good practice model, that good 40-hour model of CIT training and get involved and be a part of it. Because really at the end of the day, when everybody goes home, they're going back home to their community that they all live in, and we all have to support each other.
I'll add a quick disclaimer on that we know CIT has been around for a very long time, 87, 88, yet there's still a lot of people that don't have it. The other part of that is there's a lot of departments that have adopted a CIT program, but there is absolutely no benefit or value to it because they're having unqualified people teach it. There's no role play scenarios at all. It's not community supported. And I've seen this. This isn't like make believe. I've seen it where even within Texas, where they basically printed off the 40 hours of slides, gave them to one jailer who had never even worked in a patrol capacity, and told her to teach the entire week. You're not going to get behavior change that way. And in my opinion, while CIT does teach de-escalation, furthermore, it teaches about jail diversion. It teaches about the benefits of treatment versus incarceration. It really teaches about when you have a robust CIT program, you're also fostering relationships between law enforcement and the behavioral health community. And and so because historically this is how our jails have become busting at the seams, and the number one treatment provider of mental health and all the things is because when America deinstitutionalized the mental health problem and thought they were going to do community-based treatment, and then the money never came, it suddenly became a police problem. And this has been for decades. And so police officers were like, well, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on, but I know it's a disturbance of some sort, and so I'm going to arrest them. And so this is why we ended up with so many people in the jails that have a mental illness. And what we also know is that people with a serious mental illness will stay in jail 3 to 4 times longer than a violent felon that has resources to bond out. And so I would say, yes, it's vital that you have a CIT program, but it's even more important that you actually pay attention to who's doing it. What does that mean? What does that look like? Who's involved? Our motto was always officer-led, community supported. I've seen it when I was out in North Carolina a month or two ago, and a lot of states have these statewide CIT programs, and it's great on its surface, but they came in and I don't know if they were auditing ours or what they were doing, but we went in there and did it, and all the officers, and because they started a co-responder model, and so they were starting a behavioral health team. They hired clinicians, and so they're like, hey, we want you to come in and teach them using your version. And we still relied on the community heavily. We still worked with NAMI. We still did all the things that we would normally do. But all of the officers said that hey, this was far superior to the CIT training we had. Why? And it's not a slight on North Carolina. It's just most of who they have teaching their content is treatment providers or doctors or people from NAMI. And to really get through to an officer, especially in a 40-hour training, you've got to have credibility. And I'm not saying this is fair, because absolutely a psychiatrist or a psychologist or an LPC or an LCSW or whatever is absolutely qualified to teach this. But from an officer's perspective, where we have high skeptics or high cynical, or we don't trust the out group, and you have to be part of the in group. You just have far superior results when you have internal champions and advocates that are willing to step up and learn this stuff and teach it. That's where you're going to get the buy-in. And also too, CIT, what I say is CIT is just a vehicle, because people do their own thing with it. It's sadly, people use it as just like checking a box for liability purposes, but there's no refresher, there's no follow on, there's no anything. It's like get the training and then go back to doing exactly what you did. Nothing changes. And so I think, I'm fortunate that, like, again, the program we've created was we just use CIT as the vehicle because that's what people know. But our primary focus is absolutely focusing on the individual wellness of each officer. Because I think if you have an individually well officer, then you can have a holistic like officer who has a healthy family, and then you have a healthy department, and then you have a healthy community. But it has to be an inside job, and too many initiatives are grasping at straws right now, trying to create things from the outside in, and they're trying to force change on police departments, and it's going to be incredibly difficult to do. It has to come from the inside out. And so I think wellness is just a great way to kind of tee it up and get them to shift their perspective, remember why they're doing this in the first place. But anyway, but yes, CIT should be mandatory for all people, 100%, but it should be quality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
I want to invite if you would like to give some feedback. Want to come and introduce yourself?
Hi, guys.
How you doing?
My name's Lane. I'm with the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center. I've been there about 1.5 years, and prior to that, I was a law enforcement officer for 18 years here in the middle of Kansas. We had a lot of pushback, not so much from our admin, but from the salty, seasoned, I've seen it all, nothing else works, kind of like Joe was talking about, those cops that don't see any point to mental health first aid, CIT, all those things that we were pushing. How did you, in your experience, get some buy-in from those cops that just didn't see the point to it?
Yeah, and we saw the same thing, right? We had officers that wanted to retire rather than take the course because the course was being mandated by the chief. But what we did, we focused again on officer wellness. There was one point during the time we were teaching where we had 3 suicides within the department in about an 18-month period. So it hit really close to home. So it wasn't really difficult to say, hey, there's a problem here, right? There's a problem within law enforcement because we're our own worst enemies. We're killing ourselves at a rate 4-to-1, right, of being killed in the line of duty. So we had to kind of bring it home a little bit. But also what we realized was the officers that were giving us the most pushback was because they were somehow directly affected with mental health, whether it was somebody in their family, a friend, a neighbor, or their own. Usually it was a child, and the mental health system had failed them in their attempt to try to get treatment. And just like a police officer knows, you get bad treatment somewhere one time, then you go back and at coffee or at roll call, you tell everybody, don't ever go there. They're terrible, right? And that was the same attitude that we were getting from the officers, was that at some point the system had failed them and they wanted nothing to do with the mental health system or training. However, we had a great collaboration within our community for mental health, and they began to make law enforcement a priority and the primary customer. So they began to change the way things were being done to where maybe when an officer took somebody a year ago to that treatment facility, they had a very difficult time or had a bad outcome, where now we've created a mental health unit. Joe and I are the liaison. We're closing the gaps of where all these logistical issues are. And now you're seeing a change to where now if you go there, you're in and out in 15 minutes and you're getting good service, right? So it took the community to come together and the police department to do their part as well. And what we found was at the end of the week, the officers would come up to us that were giving us the most pushback and asking, first of all, that was the best training I've ever had in 20 years, 25 years. Can I come back and help? Can I be a role player? Can I help grade? Can I, what can I do? Because they buy into it, right? It takes a little while. And when you're talking about police officer suicide and self-care there, you get their attention. So it was really a collaboration of community. It was personal stories within the department, and it was the delivery itself to the officers in why this is important for us now and in the future to come.
Yeah, like it really, as long as it's voluntary, you're going to get pushback. Then when it's mandatory, you're going to get pushback, but you have far more control because, yeah, they're going to show up frustrated and mad about it. But to Ernie's point, people are afraid of it because it's unknown, right? And again, 99% of people got into law enforcement with a general understanding of what that meant. And I'm going to do traffic and enforce the law and do all this like police type stuff. And they have yet to still, which is kind of mind boggling because it's not like it just happened yesterday. I mean, it's been several years now, but they've yet to like kind of open their eyes around them and realize that like, oh yeah, we actually deal with a lot of complex issues as police officers. Like Chief Brown said from Dallas in his famous talk, you know, that like every societal failing has fallen on the shoulders of law enforcement officers. You know, bad parenting, school issues, like mental health, drugs, like every issue that's a community-based issue or should be has become a police issue. Yet the training hasn't caught up. And so I do not understand why there's still places that allow it to be voluntary. I do not think that, because it really, like the most succinct way I can say this is it needs to be mandatory from the top down. And then it has to be, you have to have credible delivery. Like it matters who's giving that. And again, I cannot stress that point enough because it's not about just pushing content and reading bullet points on a slide. It's about like, what is your personal affiliation to this? Like, why you? Like, why are you up there teaching this? And if you don't have, again, not everybody has to be, because on our unit, when we would run a school of like 70, there was usually about 8 to 12 instructors out there from us. Not everybody would like share a personal heartfelt story or like teach that way, but some of us did. And having just those couple people, and every single time you would see it, like the people who were the most vulnerable, that were the most open, that would share the most, would get the best critiques. People actually connect to that. It's one thing to just teach a theory. It's another thing to like have a personal affiliation and say, look, this is why this matters to me. And then again, like Ernie was saying, once you make it like real and kind of hit home and talk about the fact that like, yeah, these are the numbers, right? We continue to kill ourselves way more than being killed in line of duty. And yet we still have so much like fear-based training to prepare you for the worst day. So I think that's the simplest way. And then I'll leave you with this too. I think, because I don't know if it's mandatory there or not. I don't know if like CIT, what it even looks like there in Kansas, but there's already departments now that are pushing, and I'm a huge advocate for this, and I scream it everywhere I go, but for mandatory mental health appointments for officers every year. And as soon as you hear that, some people are like, yeah, that's a great idea. And some people are like, oh, heck no. And all this feeling comes up, right? Because they think like, I have to shield, I have to hide, I have to suppress, shove, compartmentalize, whatever it is. And or because if they find out that I'm struggling, then they're going to fire me. And it's like, that's not the point of the purpose. The purpose is to actually get you help. But there's so many like secondary opportunities through a well-run CIT program that most people don't realize. Again, it's not just about making a better cop to go deal with a mental health call. This is really about making a better person deal with their marriage and their children and their own personal life, and have insight and wisdom, and be able to like rely on self-reflection to understand what's happening within them. And then like the community benefits eventually. But if you don't take care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to go out into the world and do a good job consistently, right? And we know this, we've seen it. But again, it's like we're always wanting to deal with the end result or the outcome before we're dealing with like cleaning up the foundation of how the issue exists in the first place. So yeah, I guess I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Lane. Appreciate it.
Hello.
Hi.
So my name's Chris. I've been in law enforcement for almost 24 years. Jealous that you guys are in Texas because I'm from Houston. I worked in Houston for 8 years there. So where I first saw CIT was through Houston.
That's where we got our training.
And that was back in 98 or 97 when I started. But so when I first saw it, when I first came to Kansas, there wasn't really much talk, like Lane said. And I talked about CIT when I came here, and asked about it, and they were kind of told, yeah, we don't do that here. And it was kind of a I don't know, a bad topic, but it just, well, we don't do it here. And I said, oh, okay, well, we had a whole bunch of people that are stations, before I came at it. So now that Lane's left, I'm kind of taking over doing it for the department, which I obviously did a lot more training in it also. Because like you said, it's kind of in a standstill of, we're trying to get people for, qualified to teach and learn it. They're talking about their co-responder models. And of course, I guess the difference for me partially when I came here too is that I was used to, the larger city had more money, more stuff they could put towards those resources. And
Right.
in the smaller places, you look for grants and you look for other stuff to get the money to do that stuff. So I think it's great that San Antonio, and that a lot of departments are doing it. But like you said, it's got to be content, and the people teaching it need to be good. Basically, that's about it.
Yeah, no, it's I appreciate you sharing that. We got our start in Houston just because they were the first ones to get it in Texas. So we went out there for the train the trainer, and then brought it back to San Antonio. But yeah, it's fascinating when people are like, we don't do that here. And then I would respond, we don't take mental health calls? Because we're gonna be like, no, we get those all the time. Well, then we should probably be doing CIT, right? Like if you're not making mental health calls, then great. I wonder what utopian community that is. But we know that every agency is responding to people in a mental health crisis, and yet still half of them do not have basic CIT training. And to the point Lane was making, I'm not a fan of mental health first aid for cops. I think mental health first aid is fantastic, and I think it should be mandatory for every American citizen before you're 18 years old. I think it should be mandatory. I think that would be the fastest way to significantly reduce 911 calls for people who are having a mental health crisis, is if we mandated mental health first aid. But for police officers, I don't think it's sufficient. A 1 day, 8-hour training, again, awareness doesn't drive behavior change. And an 8-hour training where there's really no role plays, it's all just content, it's not going to send the message home the way a 40-hour training will. And so I think anyone that's a police, fire, EMS responder to that 911 call should have to go through the 40 hours of crisis intervention team training. If you're a clinician or a treatment provider or like any other capacity, then yeah, mental health first aid is a great place to start. But we even for me though, I like with the business I run now, I don't like doing the 8 hours for them. We do a 3-day for clinicians. Anyone that's non-police, fire, EMS, we do a 24-hour. I'm in Iowa right now. We just finished one yesterday, and so I think 3 days is a sweet spot because you get 3 days of role play development. You get to reinforce, the content that you are pushing throughout the day, but you build them up. And again, like like every single time it happens, but we had a guy that had been in the mental health field for 32 years. He goes, Joe, I've been to every single training that exists. Mental health first aid, CIT, every training that's out there. And that was on the first day of it. And then the last day he was like, and by far, this was the best training I've ever been to in my life. Because again, credibility, it's so much personal story and attachment to it. And like our passion for why we do this is so profound that people can't help themselves but to like want to jump all the way in with us. And so that's why we get the great results that we get. But I don't even think 8 hours is really good. I think if you're dealing with people that have a mental health diagnosis on any level, whether it's adolescent or adult, whether you're a treatment provider, even if you have your license, because the people we just trained, they were all clinicians, but they're not like crisis interventionists. And so they still were all like, holy crap, like this is really, really good training. And then they just keep bringing us back and keep bringing us back. And we just do more and more and more. Because every time we do one, people are like, wow, I need this to happen with here and here. So, I think non-law enforcement should be 24 hours, my opinion. And then if you're a first responder, police, fire, EMS, you should have to do the 40 hours. I think it should be a must. Like it's wild to me that it's not the case.
Right. And as you said earlier, I liked about what you said about police. And as Lane said, older people are pushing back. Oh, I don't want to get in that because, before is, all I need is this brick radio and this revolver, and I can handle everything. And law enforcement in a whole, as you said, don't look at ourselves or anything saying, I've, pushed all this stuff back down in forever. And they mentioned, as you said, a year, hey, we're going to make everybody go through, go see a counselor or see something every year. And, people don't admit that because, as you said, everybody's, oh man, if I say something's wrong with me, they're taking my badge, they're taking my gun. I'm not, my career's over, but I've seen now where, they do peers, they have, you guys use peer support or the different stuff down there.
Yep.
And I think some of that stuff's working, but it's not exactly as you said, where it's usually when someone sees something wrong and then they use a peer support, and then they go get some help when they need it. But so.
Yeah, it really, you really have to like look at the culture again, like from the macro level and then the micro level, but it is a cultural issue. It's a culture of what policing in America has become. And for us to really kind of shift it, it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of people that are willing to, say things that aren't necessarily popular, a lot of people in positions of authority that are willing to like champion for some of these things. Cause you also have to have policies in place, and you have to have like supervisory oversight. And there has to be things that it's not just like, yeah, this is good for them. This is just good for the patrol officers. Like, no, because what we also know is that the higher you move up in rank, the less you feel that you're able to come forward and make an outcry, right? Because I'm not allowed to like say I'm hurting or struggling. Like I'm a captain or a deputy chief. What would that look like? And so, people in positions of authority tend to think like all that mental health stuff is for the day in, day out patrol officers because they need it, but they're somehow immune to it. And we just know that's not the case. And so again, I think it has to be like a cultural shift from the top down and the bottom up simultaneously.
I just have to jump in real quick.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
So we might, if you guys get kicked out, if you're available to come back on, please join or join back, because Zoom is saying you guys are finished. So we have another question about. Can you tell us a little bit about the advocacy council of the council? Let me look. Sorry.
Hey,
I'm like panicking
Stacey,
over
when we get kicked out, is it going to be the same link or you have to make a new link?
It should be the same. It should be the same link. What help is available for communities to help communities learn about CIT through NAMI Kansas? No, that wasn't the question. Can you describe who serves on your CIT council?
So we don't, that's what's unique about it. I mean, we have a Texas state CIT, which is equivalent to like the CIT council, but we don't have a CIT council in San Antonio. We don't, like San Antonio Police Department runs all things CIT. Now, San Antonio falls in Bexar County. Bexar County is almost 2 million people. Within Bexar County, we've got 22 municipalities. And so the San Antonio Police Department would run all of the CIT training. They were all invited to our training, and then it started expanding out beyond those agencies. But there is not a council. There's not there's nothing like that. We did it as a unit. Our mental health unit just drove everything. We decided when the courses were happening, how many were happening, and we controlled everything. There was no council, and I've seen other states have CIT councils and like community members that are a part of it all. I mean, our community members are part of the training and they deliver some of the courses, but we have meetings to set up like who's going to sponsor the church and the printing and the meals, but it's not like an official council.
Got you. Thank you. So this is going to it's going to kick you guys out in 1 minute. I'm just going to reopen the room because we have a lot of, some feedback and questions from our Facebook feed. Okay.
Oh, what's up? We got a golden retriever there. Come on.
Echo.
Knocked out. Wants nothing to do with it.
Her name is Echo.
Echo.
She's a service dog.
Yes, she is. And she's doing downward dog. Woke her up from her nap. Man.
Okay.
Echo. All right. We'll jump back on the same link.
Yes, please.
All right.
I just want to bring some information to everyone who's watching, and if you're from Kansas, and I think we have a few people joining us from Nebraska, but you were talking, we here in Hayes actually have a CIT council that meets. In a question that came in, and answering that question, we have a Kansas CIT Association, and it's online that people can go to, and it supports CIT and people who are interested in CIT. And so by being in touch probably with NAMI Kansas, or it looks like KCITA, I think is
KSCITA.org.
KSCITA.org is a resource to learn more and for people to get involved. So I just wanted to share that resource, because that's one thing we did find out in our community is you really do need the community to learn about it and learn how it is so special and the really wonderful things it can provide to your community. I'm a social worker of 30 some years, and I just can't say enough about the CIT Council. I think it's a wonderful concept. And
Absolutely.
Yeah. With your walk coming up, Stacy, let me ask you this. Is local law enforcement involved in the walk that you have, or is it going to be a virtual walk?
It is a virtual walk. And historically, the officers, we do get a handful of officers that come and volunteer for walk day to help with security because of the funds that are being collected that day. But they also too interact with everybody there, and we love to have them. We love to have them come on.
Yeah, I kind of put the chief on the spot one year, and I told him, NAMIWalks always has a huge turnout here in San Antonio, and we would love you to be the keynote and give the opening welcome, and kind of put him on the spot with that. And he loves the limelight anyway. So when he got up there, I remember his first NAMI walk, and he's been back since several times. It took that a little bit of pressure to get him up there in front of everybody. But once he saw the community, that gathered there and really appreciated the collaboration, each year it was a lot easier to invite him to come out. I mean, he would even bring his kids and tell me, hey, go watch my kids while I do this speech, So it was good to get leadership involved to come out and speak at the NAMI walk. And that's kind of just continues to open up the door for that community collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had what we call the not so silent art auction. We've also, there's an officer, CIT officer for the local police department in Topeka, who is also an artist, and she's always had a real big heart for helping people out there in the community that are in crisis, and her job just means so much to her. And hopefully she's on watching today, but yeah, so yes, share something. Yes, absolutely.
I want to share something that might be helpful that happened here in our community. Our NAMI Hayes affiliate had a successful fundraiser, and we also wrote a grant to one of our local foundations to send a representative from our steering committee, and then 4 or 5 police, 2 sheriff, 2 police, and I'm not sure. We sent 5 or 6 of these people. We paid for them to go to the national CIT training, and from what I understand in the feedback from our chief and our sheriff and all the ones and our representatives that attended, it changed their perspective and just really let that, and one of our clinical mental health director also went along, and he's a big advocate for CIT. And so in paying for their expenses, that in getting that grant to send them to the national conference, that's when it was in Seattle.
Yeah.
They really appreciated that experience. So that's also what I would encourage communities or NAMI affiliates to look at too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember when I went to the very first CIT International, and it was held in Columbus, and that's where you get the personal stories, right, from the keynote speakers and the presenters, and you can't help but feel the feels when you're there, you know, taking those courses. So I highly recommend, if you can get out to the conferences, you know, go. They've changed a little bit, but I know that probably the first 6 I went to, you know, departments were very engaged. It was all about what is CIT and how do we start up a unit. And now they're all talking about advanced CIT training and more self-care within departments. So I totally agree. That's a great point that you made.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so some of the other comments in the chat feed are from Katie. Joe, I agree. Small town Kansas, people feel like it's not a good idea to call the police on their family. Even if they are in crisis, they end up in jail or dead because their family didn't want to call the police. And when they did, the family lost a loved one to tragedy. And then it was also followed up. I want to step up and learn and train. Why? Because I've had to talk my mom out of crisis. I also have had to watch her go to jail. It's rough. Yeah, I mean, there's communities that, you know, don't have, you know, follow-up support available and places, you know, for people to get more services like wraparound services and, you know, help them set goals and then, you know, walk them through. What tips can you give people if they want to start your job?
Which job are we talking about here?
Well, it doesn't specify, but how about what you guys are doing now when some, yeah, what advice, what tips would you give people if they want to start your job currently?
I'm gonna take a little liberty and just assume that they are talking about, because Ernie's like training on an Air Force base for the Department of Defense Navy recruits, and I own a company where I travel around training people, and so I don't know if that's what they're talking about. I think it's more for like mental health as a whole. Again, and to the point you were just making too, Stacy, I think, you know, for communities that are afraid or don't know, like, this is the significance of NAMI, right? I mean, it's so important that people have a relationship with their local NAMI affiliate, that they go to some of the training, that they show up and meet people, because again, that sometimes is going to be the best and only resource available to them. Furthermore, I think it's one thing to be like have a serious mental illness and be in a full-blown crisis and absolutely need like emergent services. But there's usually a lot of things that are happening before we get to that point. And this is where I always like to have kind of a call to action for every individual and say, like, what is your own level of understanding when it comes to mental health? Like, what is your own level of comfort? If you see someone in crisis or if you see someone crying, would you, even if you didn't know them, would you walk up to them and interact with them, or would you see it and walk away from it? And I'm sure a lot of people in your community are familiar with Kevin Hines and his story, but you know, that it's such a tragedy. And I was fortunate to get to speak with him a couple years ago. But when he says that, like, I went to school and I dropped out of my classes and I was crying. And then I get on a bus and I go to the Golden Gate Bridge and I was crying. And then I'm walking down the Golden Gate Bridge crying, just begging for someone to stop me. And nobody did until that woman said, "Will you take my picture?" And he took her picture, gave her phone back and said, "No one cares," and jumped off. Now, I don't know how many people he interfaced with or saw. I would just random guess say it was at least 30 to 50, at least. And not one of them felt comfortable with saying, like, "Hey, sir, like, are you okay?" And I think that is such a simple place to start, because we are so uncomfortable and so many people lack true emotional intelligence. And so because of fear of not knowing what to do or not knowing what to say, or being afraid that we're going to offend, or we're going to cross over someone's line, or maybe we're going to upset them because we ask them if they're okay and they get mad about it. And then I don't know what to do in that situation. And so we just avoid it. Right. And I think that that's such a simple place to start, is educate yourself, become comfortable in this like world of crises. It was through saturation alone that Ernie and I became as good as we are at what we do. Because when we started, it was, yeah, our hearts were always in the right place for sure. But I have no doubt that we were just like stumbling through the dark trying to figure it out for the first couple years. And whenever we would get new officers on the unit, we would tell them, like, "Hey, it takes about 2 years before we have full confidence in you to teach the content, to make the calls." 2 years, because it's very, very complex. And we were doing this every day, right? 5 days a week. So like reading a book one time, I don't know if that's going to do it. Like, but consume content, right? Look things up, get with NAMI, read books, consume like positive media that's going to teach you about how to deal with people in a crisis. So you don't have to be afraid of it. Because that's really what it comes down to, is when someone is symptomatic of their illness and we don't know what's happening. And this is the same thing that happens in law enforcement, is we get called to a call with someone in crisis. They feel like they've got chips in them. They're being zapped from space. There's people in their attic. A cop that has never been trained in mental health has no clue what's going on there. They don't know about hallucinations. They don't know about psychoses. They don't know anything. And so they're going to fumble through that. Some are going to do better than others. Some are going to be incredibly offensive and dismissive, not on purpose, but because I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And so this is why like education matters more than anything else. Education and practice, implementation, because just like knowledge is power, but if you don't do anything with it, it's worthless, right? So don't just learn something and keep it stored. Like learn it and share it, or learn it and use it. But the implementation is so important. And so I guess that would be my best advice for like, how can I get involved or do anything? And truly, this is whether you are in policing, the mental health field, or a banker, or a construction worker. Like, it doesn't matter, because wherever you go, there you are, and you're going to end up seeing people. And so what are you going to do if someone that you know or don't know is around you and they go into a crisis? How are you going to handle it? And the truth is most people don't know until they see it, and then they know how they handle it, and it's not always ideal.
You know, and you know, back to Lane's point about, you know, older officers, and not to offend Echo that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but, you know, working with Joe, you know, when I got him as a partner, you know, he was going through a lot of personal issues, and then he got into counseling and therapy. And that's where I saw him really elevate as a person and become the best. And I've worked with law officers. I was in law enforcement for 28 years. He became the best officer I have ever worked with, because he never stopped learning. He never stopped growing, and he never stopped trying to connect. So, you know, it doesn't matter how long you've been in law enforcement. If you're willing to learn and to educate yourself and to share with others, like you said, you got to be able to share that knowledge. You're only going to make the people around you better as well. So it's you got to have that open mindset for growth and not stay in that fixed mindset, if that makes sense.
That was the most romantic thing you've ever said to me.
And that's the last time you will ever hear it now.
I know. I started working in the mental health field back in 2005, and it was where I worked. It was required to take CIT every year, or it was not CIT. It was called CPI, Crisis Prevention
Institute.
Intervention. And it was with a different organization. And, you know, when I took that, you know, I mean, just, you know, from a peer's perspective, you know, I'm not law enforcement, but, or anything like that. Just like peer support, right? You got to take it every year. And every time I took it, I was like, oh man, this would work with this friend or my son or, you know, family. And it's like anything that you can learn is you can really put into action, you know, use the tools in any situation. And I was in an experience that I had with law enforcement in Phoenix, and I was working with a gentleman that was well, I had built a relationship, and I remember you guys talking about building that relationship with people. And so I was doing like direct services, and this gentleman came in, and I knew him, and he was having a hard time. He wanted to go to this certain hospital. He wanted to go, you know, inpatient because he was having, you know, major symptoms at that time, all the way down to feeling like super duper hopeless, even wanting to end his own life. And then, and, you know, and this guy, he was like, you know, much bigger than me. And I'm sitting behind my desk. Other staff are kind of coming around like, are you okay? Are you okay? And he made, so I called his clinical team because he said he wasn't getting support from them. I called so I called them and I was like, hey, he just wants to see if they have any beds open and help. I want to help get him in there. But he was like, I hate my clinical team. He didn't have a good relationship with them. And then he started threatening he wants to die by suicide by the police. And so although he was asking me who I was on the phone with. And I don't know, I tried to say something safe to keep him from, you know, worrying or whatever. I don't totally remember. This is in 2014, but he all of a sudden reached over the desk and hit the speaker button on the desk phone, right when they were saying that they were going to call the police and send them to our office. And that just kind of like freaked me out, you know. And I knew that they had a CIT program in Maricopa County at that time, but you know, and the police and fire department was always coming in all the time, but it just was like really scary. And so I just kind of sat with him. I told the staff, they knew that he wanted to die that way. And then when the police showed up, they diverted them out because, I mean, I had the relationship with them, and if they would have come in, I mean, I didn't want to find out what was going to happen, but we were able to find that bed for him, and it was really just that simple. And then me and another male staff transported him, and but like what anybody could have gotten hurt at that point, especially when he was, you know, didn't have that relationship with his clinical team. They did exactly what he didn't want to. That would have been the perfect storm. So you guys do a lot of work. I mean, that was a peer support perspective, but you know, the work that you guys do, because you guys are, I mean, they're not the ones that called you there, like you were saying in the film, and it's somebody else that is, you know, calling on them. So that's just knowing that when you get there, that's going to be, you know, a red hot situation, you know.
That's the power of, again, learning that if we empower them, because ultimately they want to be a part of the decision-making process. And so just because we're in a position of authority, if we show up and tell them, hey, this is what the call is, this is what I'm seeing, now this is what we're going to do, well, they're going to fight that. They're going to resist that, possibly. And so when we would show up, again, this was the goal. It was like focus on the person, not their problem. And our goal was connection over correction. And so when we show up, it's like, hey, I want to know your story. Like, what's going on with you? I don't care why I got called here right now. Tell me about you. And we would use our active listening skills. We would use empathy. We would build rapport. We build that connection. And then when it became time to go, again, I mean, we did this for, 11, 12 years, and to never have to actually use force on someone is a testament to our willingness to do this training or to implement it. But we've had plenty of people tell us I'm not going. And so when you can just basically lay out the options, right? It's a controlled outcome. And what we would tell them is, look, you have absolutely zero control over whether or not you go to the hospital, right? You told me you're going to kill yourself, or you're so decompensated, you don't even know like what planet we're in right now. You think we're in 1987. Like, you are very, very sick. And I can't imagine what you're going through right now. All right. Empathy, empathy, empathy. But then we tell them, look, you have absolutely no control, like 100% chance you're going to the hospital. I promise you. But what you do have control over is how we're going to get there. If you want to just walk out and get into our car, no handcuffs, and get there, that's what we would prefer. If you want to fight us, well, then we can do that. And I know I'm going to get hurt. Ernie might get hurt. You're going to get hurt. And then if we push this red button on our radio, it's going to be really bad. But you're still going to go to the hospital, but probably in the back of a wagon and in handcuffs. But that's your option. Furthermore, if you pick the first option, you get to pick where we go. I don't want to take you to a hospital you've maybe had a negative experience at. So if you want resources, we'll give them to you. If you want ideas or suggestions, we can give them to you. If you've been to a place that you've had a good experience, then let's go there. But you have power over all of those things, how we leave here and where we go. But whether or not we go to the hospital, that's off the table. But it's very, very matter of fact. And every single time they would come with us, every single time. Like maybe 6 or 8 made us like put our hand on their arm and like walk them. And again, to me, all that is that person's trying to hold on to whatever bit of dignity they have left of, I don't like the fact that I have this mental illness. And I don't like the fact that these cops are coming into my house and telling me I have to go to a hospital. I don't like the fact that I have to go to treatment right now. And so I'm going to resist. But what that really means is I'm going to make you put your hand on my arm and like walk me. But in Ernie and I's years of being partners together, I think we maybe handcuffed a total of maybe 6 or 7 people. It didn't go over 10 because we saw them as patients, right? We didn't see them as prisoners. We knew when we were on the mental health unit, this is not a law enforcement capacity, right? I mean, we're just armed social workers without degrees in social work, but we're really doing like human services work. And I was very, very fortunate and blessed to have that perspective and see that, because there was nothing about what we were doing that was law enforceable. It was all civil, right? Look, you're sick. You don't realize you're sick. You need treatment. You don't want treatment. I can appreciate that. I wouldn't want to be in your situation right now. Can't imagine, but we've got to do it. All right, we have to. So let's get through this together. We'll follow up with you, blah, blah. I mean, we go through it, but I think that's such a huge distinction between showing up and just saying, I am the law. This is what I know is happening. You have to come with me. And then when I tell you and you say no, now I'm mad about it. And then use of force happens very quick. Have some patience. All right. Appreciate the fact that like, yeah, they didn't ask for you to be there, and they're afraid and they're unsure or they're mad about it. And that's okay too. Right. It's okay to be mad about the fact that you're having treatment forced on you. And so I think just, again, empathy is like, it's gold when you can truly, like, true empathy, not some mock stuff, but real empathy goes a long way.
Joe, if I could jump in, in the documentary, a lot of the focus goes to Kendra, right? When she's on the bridge, but the very opening scene at the courthouse, I think that is so golden, right? Because you see us walking in plain clothes. And I think that in itself is what you don't see police departments doing. You don't see them putting their officers in plain clothes to respond, right? In the most part, you don't do that in patrol, but in a specialized unit for mental health, it made sense, right? So you saw this softer approach. And then if you really break down the behavior of how Joe interacted, you'll never see that duplicated again. It was such a incredible moment, because you see him, even though this gentleman's in a complete crisis, delusional and paranoid, Joe still made a connection with him, and they're sitting there laughing and bumping fists with each other. And I knew right then this is going to end well, right? Because at that point, Joe and I weren't going to talk over each other. He made the connection first, even though I started the conversation, but I saw the chemistry change. I immediately shut down, and my job becomes the cover officer at that point to make sure the environment is safe, right? Even though I'm seated, I'm sitting down. The conversation that happened there, exactly what Joe described. The gentleman just walks right out, no handcuffs. We give him a cigarette to smoke and he sits down. That could have gone bad so many ways if you'd have sent a bailiff in there, a sheriff who's like, I've got to protect the integrity of this courtroom, and remove this issue and do it quickly, right? And we didn't rush that. I think that call maybe took 15 minutes. And the outcome was incredible. So if you really go back and rewatch that part, break it down and look at it, because when you go to Kendra on the bridge, now we're in uniform, working off duty, extra job for patrol, and using the same exact skill set in uniform, showing you that this can still work. The uniform was a little bit more of a barrier because Kendra was more standoffish.
Yes,
But once our body language showed that we were no threat, I sat down. Yeah, I sat down. Joe shook her hand and walked off and kept his word. I knew we were going to have a good outcome. Like you said, it just takes patience.
Yes, thank you for that. I'm going to go through some of these other. Patsy said, so Joe, are you working for these wonderful changes you suggest? How about calling yourself peace officers versus police officers?
Yeah, I am. And again, there's many reasons I left the department. But I started the company I have in 2017. It was just a side business, but now it's full blown. I mean, this is all I do. And I travel a lot and I'm all over the place, and everywhere I go, I talk about these things. And whether I'm meeting with the chiefs, the sheriffs, city council, city government, county government, I always make sure that my opinions are shared, whether they're asked for or not. And it's liberating to know that I can do that now without the puppet master of the police department behind me saying, you're not allowed to say those things. So I am advocating for this every opportunity I get. This is why I'm super grateful for the film and what it's done too, because not just to connect with people all over the country, but it's a conversation starter, right? Where people are like, oh, look, there's a possibility that we could do things a little better. So it's created a lot of opportunities just to meet some really incredible people all over the country. And when we were doing the film festivals, they would ask that question, like, hey, if you could do things differently, what do you think should change? And that was one of those where, and I don't just say things out of like just pure ignorance or like, well, I think we should just do this, and there's no thought behind it. A lot of my opinions, in fact, all of my opinions when it comes to helping this profession, is because I genuinely love them and I want them to stop seeing suicide as an option. I want them to stop being plastered all over media outlets for making a terrible split-second decision that they got called to or dispatched to. And I want them to just slow down and regain some perspective. And I think that, again, it's not from, I see police as the problem. In fact, it breaks my heart that I get asked at least weekly from different communities, or they tell me about their initiative they're doing and they'll ask for my opinion on it. And there's one actually here in Des Moines where they were talking about creating a program where if you're a juvenile adolescent, if you're a child with mental health issues, the police officers will not respond. It's only going to be mobile crisis clinicians. And I have a problem with that. And again, I think it's common sense to say, like, we just want to remove the uniform and the gun from the call. And because if we remove the uniform and the gun from that call, then we can guarantee that there's not going to be a mentally ill person that gets shot in that situation. And that's a great, like, A to B, but it's not always that simple. And so I think it would be far easier than, again, just grasping at these initiatives to just train up some police officers. Jen McShane, who's the brilliant filmmaker behind this incredible piece, shared a story with me yesterday in California, where there was a situation with a mentally ill person and they had to call the police. They asked for a CIT trained officer. 2 uniform officers showed up. They're like struggling through it. Yeah, I just don't know. Let's wait on these 2 other guys. The 2 other guys show up in plain clothes. And he says, hey, my cousin is Jen McShane. She made Ernie and Joe crisis cops. And they were like, what? No way. We're the Ernie and Joe of our police department. And so that's the thing that I'm talking about. Every police agency has one or two people that have the hearts for this, that have the minds for this, that have the purpose behind why they want to do this. And they can make them either be a unit, a team, a co-responder, like work with the clinicians. But just to say like blanket police are not going to go to mental health calls, I just don't get it. I know Harlem did this. The whole borough of Harlem is like police will no longer respond to mental health calls. I just don't understand how that's like even a feasible reality. So yes, I scream it everywhere I go. My opinions are based on lived and learned experiences. It's based on the amount of officers that I've seen get into treatment that have been terrified about treatment. The ones that tell me like, Joe, I don't know how to ask for help. Like Ernie mentioned, you know, the 3 suicides we dealt with in 18 months just on our department. To me, it's absolutely unacceptable. Like if the job is hurting you that much, then leave it. But like the problem is people allow this profession to become their identity. And to me, that's crisis 101 is when they start to convince themselves that like being a cop is who they are. And then to that point right there, I don't like the term law enforcement officer because I think there's certain laws that are meant to be broken. If you're a homeless individual that's addicted to meth and you're an alcoholic and you have schizoaffective disorder and you don't have $1 in your pocket, you're absolutely going to be a pedestrian in the roadway or sleeping on some business step. And we should have you cannot criminalize that behavior. It's not going to work. And so I don't like law enforcement because I think it's easy for an officer to be like, well, you violated a law and I have to enforce it. And so I think, yeah, peace officers is a great way, a great term to go to. You know, I know cops don't like cops, but like, yeah, I think law enforcement should be done away with. We should be referred to as peace officers or whatever. I mean, just not law enforcement because I think it's too rigid.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Let me see. This is now an important piece of police training, but let's be honest, a lot of police officers are not on board with dealing with those who are having mental health crisis. How do you get our police officers to buy into and encourage them to react differently when dealing with mental health subject?
I would tell them go to bluehelp.org and look at the number of police officers that killed themselves last year. With 239, the numbers are still coming in. Are these not human beings and individuals that are killing themselves? Yeah, and they're in law enforcement. So why should that attitude change when it comes with dealing with the community or the public? Right? Humans are humans, behavior is behavior.
Right.
So you know, I find it difficult why a police department wouldn't want to learn a better way or a new way or a different way to how to de-escalate an issue, how to recognize what a crisis may look like, because it could be a very minor red flag that goes up. And if you dismiss it, like what happened to me, I had a partner that I worked with every day off duty at the school district, never saw any red flags, and he went home and shot himself, you know, and that hit hard because here I am trained in crisis intervention and saw nothing. And it's so easy to miss these out in the community, especially without any training. So you've got, I mean, that antiquated way that police departments train you for war to prepare you to, hey, get out there, watch out, the community is going to get you the minute you go out there and put your badge on. That's just not the reality. Is this a dangerous job and can you get killed? Absolutely. It happens every year. That's the oath, though, that we take to protect the community. But are we protecting the community if we're not trained to help them? I think that's a question that needs to be asked.
Yeah, I think, again, one of the things that I scream about everywhere I go to is the need for police training academy reform. Just like it said in the documentary too, you know, still on average, we've got 60 hours of handling your firearm and 8 on communication. You know, to me, I hear you saying, let's be honest. And I know what that really communicates. but I also want to say too, we cannot have, and this isn't just to let law enforcement officers or police officers off the hook, but we cannot or should not have we should not have unrealistic expectations of police officers to show up and be mental health experts if they have not been trained. It's not reasonable. And so I channel your frustration, and I want to say, take it to whoever makes decisions at the training academies, because if and think about this too, every police department in this country, every police department mandatory has to shoot their firearm every single year to qualify for liability. More than 95% of cops will never shoot their gun in their entire career. Yet they have to qualify every year because of liability. We can guarantee 100% of police officers are going to be exposed to trauma every single year, whether it's a motor vehicle fatality, a murder-suicide, a homicide, a suicide, whatever it is, there's trauma consumption, and yet there's no mandatory offloading of that. There's no mandatory processing of that. We want you to be very skilled with your firearm, but we're not going to prioritize your mental health. And so, yeah, this is why officers, this is why you're saying, let's be honest, officers don't want to deal with it. It's because they were sold a lie from the beginning, which is that the community, people are dangerous. People are inherently dangerous. You got to watch everyone, scan for threats, do all this stuff. And it's yeah, we know that there was 44 officers shot and killed in 2019 in the line of duty, and that's horrible, but 239 killed themselves. And so how much of your training in the academy is focused on fear and being shown videos of officers being ambushed and shot and killed, and you're like, oh my God, you're terrified. When we know that it's such a small fraction. And then the cops will tell me, because I've said this, and they're like, well, that's because we've had advancements in medicine. And so we have a lot of officers getting shot, but now we're saving their lives with quick clot. Regardless, it's still not 239. And it still is it's an unfair, unrealistic, shift that needs to happen. And until or unless it's happening in the police training academy, because that's where they're malleable. That's where we have the most control over them. They're going to soak it up like a sponge. And if all of your, I'll share this quick story, but it was a report writing class, right? This class.
But I'm sorry. It's going to cut off in 2 minutes. Again.
Yeah. So I'm going to be super quick. Okay. So this is a report writing class in the police academy. This teaches you how to write police reports. That's it. The instructor comes in, starts that class with a traffic stop where the officer gets ambushed and shot in the head and killed. What does that have to do with report writing? But there's so much of this, I want to pour into you that you're going to die when you get out there. And until we're willing to change. And again, I'm not saying get rid of it completely. We have to prepare them for what could possibly be, but it shouldn't be at that, it's just very disproportionate. And so again, I think that's a great place to start. And I yield my time. Are we signing back in again? What are we doing here? What's the plan?
We certainly can if you guys are up for it.
We're at your, whatever you need, Stacy.
I think what would be really cool is if these two conversations can be combined. What the police are experiencing out there combined with what is happening with people that are experiencing mental health crisis in the community, and just I don't know, support each other, because I know I read that question, and we don't, we may know a lot about how to go and get our services, and how to take care of ourselves, but then also keeping in mind the experience of others, us meeting the police where they're at, and kind of keeping that in the back of the head when, advocating for, CIT for NAMI to come in and do that in a new community, or even having
trauma-informed care.